Good evening and welcome to the studio this evening. Right, well tonight hopefully I should be doing pyrography, and I have just realised that I need to move that pyro machine, otherwise I will be burning through cables. Not a good idea. But what we're going to do tonight is that's a drawing that I did yesterday of a lion. And we're going to do some pyrography of that lion, but a bit bigger. I was just about to try and put these glasses on over the top of the ones I'm wearing, which of course you can't do, well, not with normal glasses. So I shall take those off. Reminds me, I must clean them. Got some isopropyl alcohol around here somewhere. So earlier on, before the stream, I sort of redrew it a bit bigger there, so that I can fill this a little bit better. I should have done it a bit more that way. Never mind, it'll do. Right, so we shall get on with this. Now the nice thing about the lion is it's orangey brown, which of course is the colour of pyrography, so I'm hoping this is going to work well. It's going to be fun doing the fur though. It is going to be fun doing the fur. I am not altogether, well, I am sort of altogether sure about how to. I'm looking at reference pictures. I'm not going to be doing the individual hairs, that's for sure. So it is, well, I might be doing on the face. I'm doing the long hairs. That I'm certainly not doing the long hairs. But the short hairs on the face, I don't know. We'll probably start by seeing if we can just do them in a shaded form, and then we'll take it from there. I am wondering, do I want my other shader for this? My other shader is a bit wider. No, I'm going to do the nose first. Let's stick with this one initially, and we'll work from there. And I want that pen, which is this one. Okay, because I've got two pens attached to this machine, a drawing pen and a shading pen. One of the things I want to avoid doing is drawing any lines, because nature doesn't have lines around the edges, doesn't have outlines. So I want to avoid the outlines if I can. What I also want to do here is just tilt this board up a little bit, like that, which will help me with glare and you with glare, and also help to avoid, well, help just the angles basically. So you should be able to see more of the drawing there. Now normally I don't want to do pyrography over the drawing marks, because that cooks them into the pyrography and then you can't get them out. But one of the things I want to do here is make this black. Well, not necessarily exactly black, but as dark as I can get it. And so the pyrographic marks essentially won't show up. The guidelines won't show up, because even if I do cook them in, they will be, the pyrography will be darker. Yeah, then the last A4 piece we did, Salute to Sunset, took 30 hours to do, although largely, well, if that's anything like the chainmail stuff, I seem to take twice as long when I'm doing it on stream. I guess answering questions, talking and or demonstrating things makes it extends the time. But let's see if we can do it a little bit faster than 30 hours. So this nostril area, as I say, about as dark, or it is the darkest part of the whole image. At the moment I'm not using this heated up particularly hot to help me establish outlines before I turn up the heat. Now, rather than turning up the heat on the tool, what I'm actually doing is just holding it in one place for longer. Same effect in that it increases the quantity of heat that's applied to an area of wood, and this is about the quantity. The temperature just is about speed. The length of time in a particular area is quantity, and the darkness is related to the quantity. of heat. So the more quantity, the darker it becomes. So just concentrating here on getting quite a sharp line. But nice and smooth. See plenty of sharp lines on things, but you don't often see jagged lines as such. Same things like holly leaves, for example, which you might imagine are quite sharp and jagged. They're kind of not. If you look at the leaf shape, it is very much sort of smooth curves coming out to a point, and smooth curves coming out to a point on both sides. And often where you see what at first is apparently jagged, it's of that sort of nature. Now, one thing I have to be a little bit careful of as I come into the narrow areas is not to accidentally apply too much heat from, say, the heel of the tool, which is going to be overlapping or overhanging an uncoloured area. So I'm going to do here is turn the tool over, so that I can use just the tip. Nothing hanging over here. Of course, now because I'm using a smaller area, the quantity of heat that's being transferred is a lot slower, or it takes a lot longer. I have to hold it in place a lot more than I would otherwise do so. Trying to work out, and it's probably lighting. Lighting does fool you when you get this dark because of it becomes shiny. And when it becomes shiny, obviously it reflects light, but it looks lighter than it should do. And so you can often spend ages trying to make something dark when it actually is dark. It's black and it's just reflecting light. So I've got another area that's quite dark here, which is going to be around the eye. Yeah, slightly lower than that. Okay, this isn't quite as dark. And it is kind of like the next level of darkness up from this. Yeah, and then yeah, we will outline the eye as well in a moment. So let me just turn this over. I'll keep swapping this around. It's more convenient to work from certain angles, especially when I want an edge like I do here, because I can work with the tip of the tool, and the tip of the tool naturally gives me a sharp edge. And as I mentioned, I want this quite dark. Not quite as dark as that, but quite dark. Now that light is playing a little bit of havoc with doing this, because as I mentioned, the reflections. So let me turn this over because I want a fine line around the bottom of the eye. And as that comes up into there, okay, let's see if I can actually get, that would be a black pupil. effectively it just means holding the tool in one place for quite a long time. A long time there is a relative term, of course. And now what we want to do is to be quite soft-wise, just to come across the top of the eye here. In quite a heavy shadow, really. I don't particularly want any lines showing up in this area. It is a heavy shadow. It is actually darker than that, so we are looking at this bottom edge of the shadow as being virtually that dark. And it will sort of just tail off around there. Let me soften off this edge here. Probably could do with being a little bit darker, so let's just darken that off a bit. And we'll give the eye a little bit of colour. Like that. Ah, Snake. Hello, good evening. Right, so we've got a nostril and we've got an eye. I often like to do the eyes first, if I can, Because if you get the eyes wrong, you might as well forget it. Getting the eyes right makes an enormous amount of difference. Getting the nostril right would help as well. That's sort of better. Okay, now then let's create an outline. A thin outline, but an outline nonetheless. Just around the top of the nose here. Which is effectively where the fur begins on the nose. So fur that side to the fleshy nose, this side. And then what we'll do is we will drag a little bit of dark away from it. Looks a bit looking a bit narrow, is that? I think actually we probably want to take that up to about there. Bring that down like that. That looks a bit better, I think. Yeah, I'm referring to. I've got a couple of reference pictures. One of which is my original drawing, which is a little bit thin on the face, but isn't too bad, and a colour photograph or two of lions. And of course the trick is getting it to look right. And that doesn't look bad. So now what we want to do is to drag that black a little bit downwards. And by that, what that does is kind of just soften off the bottom edge a little. Out Yeah, it's about just about there. And the rest of the nose is quite a light sort of colour. And again, whilst I say it's quite a light colour, it's actually probably going to be as dark as my guidelines there. But actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase them. So first of all, I'm just cleaning my eraser. Otherwise what I'll get is dark marks off the eraser going into the wood, which I don't want. Now all I'm being careful about here is that I don't exceed the lines that I've got. That's going to hit about there. And it won't exceed the edges, because this edge and that edge, if I go over them, it will actually make it look blurred. It's not a problem going over this darker area. It'll just make it marginally darker, which isn't a fantastic problem, because it's about as dark as I want it to. You know, it can go as dark as it wants to almost. I don't have to be too careful about 100% accurate smooth colours, shades, because of course nature isn't always 100% dead smooth. That's kind of like one of the nice things about drawing animals or natural things is, if I was drawing like a shiny metal surface, you kind of expect it to be, you know, a consistent colour, or consistent, at least smooth shadedness across the whole area. Whereas animals, that's not the case, or even plants. I mean, you've got the obvious thing of camouflage, so Pyrography 1, thank you very much for the follow. That's very kind of you. Yehudi, what is pyrography? This is pyrography. Pyrography, literal translation. It's a word that has Greek roots. Which is pyro meaning fire and graphy meaning to write. So to write with fire is a literal translation, and therefore, you know, as I say, writing with fire, but I'm not using fire and I'm not writing, so I tend to translate it more as drawing with heat. I'm using heat. This pen that I've got in my hand is some few hundred degrees, couple hundred degrees. Is it burning? Not exactly burning, it's more like cooking. So if you've ever cooked meat and watched meat go brown when you apply heat, this is very much the same as that. So it's not exactly burning. It's on its way there, but it's not hot enough to actually burn. No, it's not. I don't quite like that nose shape too much, but we'll deal more with that later. So I'm going to start to apply some heat around here, staying just out inside for the moment the outline I've got there, just so that I'm just applying a bit of heat and colour so I can see where that line is, because I'm going to erase it in a minute. And the nose is quite light, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'd call it dangerous. Right, now effectively I can put that line back in now, but using the pen. Now just for the minute I'm going to keep away from the tip of the nose, but do it using a soft edge, because the tip of the nose has got a lot of light on it. Get to about there. Yeah. What we've got is, well, like most creatures with a nose, I guess, the bottom of the lion's nose is wider than it is as it comes up towards between the eyes, the bridge between the eyes. So it's kind of a triangular shape. and that's being reflected in the light, and we're getting a lighter fur colour on the top of the nose here than just down the side. Still haven't decided yet whether to actually put a fur texture on this. I may not. It's one heck of a lot of work, especially for really short fur textures like we've got it on the face. May do some around the eyes, but especially on the nose, the fur is so short that trying to texturize it may actually turn out to be counterproductive. Captain Derby, good evening. Quite simply, Yehudi, why use a pen where you can take a photograph and it doesn't even take any trouble to use your fingers? Because you don't want to take a photograph? Because I don't want to use a pen? Yehudi used a pencil? That doesn't look like pyrography, it looks like a pencil drawing. So that's why I don't want to use a pen or a pencil, because it doesn't look like a pyrography, which is what I want to do. Yeah, it's a bit like, I don't know, let's say you want it to play, I don't know, Call of Duty, and I said, well, play Minecraft. It's, you know, it's got hills in it, and got people in it, and trees and buildings. Not exactly the same. So how are you doing, Captain Derby, this evening? Not too bad, thank you, Captain Derby. A little bit of a headache, but hopefully that will disappear over the stream. It's kind of been with me all day, but I get used to them. Okay, now then, coming off the side of the nose here, I can make this area just a little bit darker. Actually made that probably a bit too light, but we'll see. just going to come off of that. Sort of around here. Okay, still I'm trying to maintain a sort of a reasonably smooth texture, not necessarily perfect. It is fur, and slight variations in fur do cause slight variations in light reflections and light and dark areas. So not too much of a problem. If it's not perfectly smooth shaded. That's across there, which is the bridge of the nose. Okay, come down here. Right. Before it gets a little bit dark as we go towards the eye, we've got the muzzle shape around here, so we've got some dark, some really dark fur just in this area as well, and the mouth. Pity about that that line across there, but never mind. And a couple of the reference pictures are showing like white fur. I don't know if that white fur, because both of them have got strong lighting, so I don't know if it's light fur just reflecting light or it's white fur. Of course, we can't do, well, technically we can't do white. We can't go any lighter than this wood is, but what you see on the wood is all about contrasts. So you see something as lighter than something else or darker than something else, and so you start to see areas like here just on the tip of the nose once, well, that start to look white because the areas alongside them are not, and it's one of the things you start to see things that aren't actually there. And at some point, as I start to put some fur in around the eyes, for example, you'll start to see them as looking orangey colour, especially if I've got just the right shade on them. And it's partly your expectations of what you expect to see, and it is partly that your eyes are fooled by the colour contrasts that go on. Okay, so I'm just kind of working out where to go in doing this. Never done a lion before, so and I've only done one other big cat, and I didn't do it in pyrography. That was done in scraper board. We're giving this cat a little bit of a scratch on his nose, just because I felt like it. So let's sketch in a little bit of darker fur around that sort of area there, and then it's going to come up towards the bridge of his nose. And then across the top, up there, and then over the top, kind of like that. And then this whole area here coming down here, is sort of I'm going to really need to start thinking about maybe doing some fur texture in that area. I wonder if I can, yeah, maybe able to do it with. I don't really want to like when I did with Junior or Felix, I used quite deep fur texture. I don't really want to do that with the lion. I may do it in this sort of area, but you kind of expect it's hard to fade it off, which is what I'd need to do. So I'm kind of looking to avoid it if I can. So I'm kind of what I'm going to try and do is use sort of a slightly intermediate way of doing it, which is to use the tip of this. So I'm holding it at an angle, so I'm just using the tip. I'm using the tip a bit like a pencil to get lines, fur lines, but without the strong texture that I had with Felix and Junior. And if I can do this with lots of lines, effectively, you'll see a fur texture just because of slight variations in the colours. It will take a lot longer to do though. If I start doing that, I basically can though. Let's see if I can do a transition. Really, that's the main thing. I need to get a transition. I think between the really short hair around here, which I really can't do with any sort of texture, and sort of areas that really clearly do have texture around the eyes and up here, radiating away from the eyes. The sort of forehead and nose area are really quite smooth on a cat, even these big cats. Let's turn this up a little bit in terms of temperature. Now, similar as with airbrushing, don't start and stop all in the same place. Otherwise you create a line, because you get a blob at the end if you're not careful. Now, initially at least I want to try and build up the colour in stages. I want to see if this is working. So I'm not exactly drawing every single hair, but I am drawing a lot of them. Or will do before I've finished. So initially you probably won't see anything of this, other than maybe slight colour developing. And it may even, just because of camera resolution etc, may only actually be something that is visible in person. I'm getting a little bit of colour variation off of this wood because of the grain of the wood. That is something I'm going to have to be careful of. That's going to come down around about that way. I don't want the grain of the wood to actually end up giving us lines, visible lines. Can avoid it, but I've got to be really careful to do it, because otherwise I end up with black areas or darker spots basically if I'm not careful. And that's just because it's really hard sometimes to accurately position a pen right between two grain lines. And when you are doing this, one of the things you are doing, as you heat the wood, it does tend to shrink away from it. Also becomes kind of like plastic, or soft, plasticky soft, a bit like clay or soft wax. So as I run the tool over this, if I'm pressing down, I'll actually get slight grooves cut in the wood. Just like you were running like a pen through wax or clay, you get like a groove cutting it. And that's kind of what's happening here as well. I don't want them to go very deep though. Don't mind them being there. What they do is because they're it's like a V cut in the wood. Depending on the angle of light, you get slight different reflections off of them, which gives you that fur texture. But with something like Felix and Junior, I went quite deep, and I don't want to do that here, as I mentioned. I don't actually want. I want you to see the fur texture, but I don't want it to be really pronounced. It's starting to do what I want it to do. It's not necessarily being shown on the camera, but it is starting to do what I want it to do, and I think I'll probably be okay. What I'm going to try in a minute is blending the edge of this. Just to try and see if I can then sort of smooth this into almost a non-textured area. And that does look like it's doing what I want it to do. Yep. Now I'm guessing you don't really see that. It might show up a little bit more later. In fact, I'm just wondering if there's a close-up will show that a little bit better. Where's my close-up camera? And I know I'll have to focus this, so let me just put that roughly in the centre. And we'll see if we can adjust the... Which way is the focus on this? That way or that way? It's that way. Nope, that's the wrong way altogether. That's not going to focus. It's too close. Okay. Nah, I won't quite focus on it. I'm not going to mess about too much with the camera, but I can see it because I know what I'm looking for. You guys won't. So, but I've got fur texture going on here and not in this area. So there's a transition across there which you can barely see, which is the idea. Which means I don't have to try and do fur texture all the way around here. I can transition into it quite nicely. Which is partly what I was trying to do. So might as well leave the camera zoomed in like that a little bit for the moment. And the light's working against me a little bit. There's a real trade-off with the lights, or with these lights, because you could do with quite a bright light to help the camera see. I'm going to zoom that out a bit. It's too much out of focus. Real bright light to help the camera see, but when I use too bright a light, then what happens is it's reflecting and I'm getting sort of reflections. off of the light, off the board, and that makes it a little bit difficult for me to see what I'm doing. Right, will that focus a little bit better now that I've just moved that camera back a bit? Marginally, it's about there. Okay. And this camera keeps adjusting itself, which is a pain. One of these days I'll be able to afford a different one. And this one go back to where it came from. That's looking like it's going to work quite well. If we do that and transition in this sort of area then to being quite dark, it should blend in quite nicely. Kind of start to get that sort of effect, so the hairs will actually blend quite well. Fluffy Twiglet, good evening, welcome. Yeah. Yeah, well, a bit of an older version of Simba. And Sniper 2023, good evening, and thank you. I kind of just want to go to about there. At least for the moment. Extend this area a little bit. Okay. slightly a little bit too just off the pointer there. Yeah, okay, so that's not a problem. Just place the shading in a little bit of the wrong place, not too far off. Or rather, place the texture a little bit in the wrong place. So I can just adjust that. It's not a problem. It will actually just help the appearance of the texture. Miss Franks, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for the comment as well. Sorry, I do sometimes tend to get a bit engrossed in what I'm doing and don't always look up quite so much. Not at the moment today, Fluffy Twiggler. I am reasonably pleased to say. It's nice to have him around, you know, but equally well it's nice not to have to work around him. And as Fluffy Twiglet says, Sniper 2023. No, I'm not. I have done some teaching in the past, but not art, and not to adults basically. But I don't actually think I'm that good enough to do it. Fluffy Twiglet, but thank you. All of this has just been discovered by doing it, Sniper 2023, and all I'm doing really in sort of explaining what I'm doing is because when I started doing pyrography, for example, I spent an awfully lot of time, you know, looking at YouTube, for example, for, you know, how to do things. And what I found was I found a lot of YouTube videos where somebody would go, for example, this is how you do a cat. Yeah, bang, 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 bang. How you draw a cat, how whatever. And actually, I see it a lot. This is how you do X. Okay, fair enough. Now what happens if I want to draw a dog? Show me how to do a cat. How do I do a dog? And you know, or a mouse or a rabbit. So one of the things that, where's my sleeve coming down? One of the things that I try and do here is not tell you how to do something, but tell you why I'm doing something. That way, you know, if it's a, you know, I'm doing this like this because I'm trying to get a fur texture, or I'm doing this because it's in shadow. You know, there are plenty of ways of doing this exactly the same thing, like creating a shadow. And you know, this is one way, or this is a way. This is the way I'm doing it. This is the reason why I'm doing it that way. You know, because I want fur texture. That way you could then, if you were doing a mouse or a rabbit or a chinchilla or a monkey, go, this is fur. I saw how fur could be done. I'll try that. And so you can apply the knowledge in other ways, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do as well as I go out. Thank you very much, Miss Banks, and thank you, Fluffy Twiglet, for the prompt. Yes, check out the store. All of the images you see there, the jewellery images are all available in the store. The other images are not yet. The stuff, all of that stuff has been done on stream as well, so it's sort of past works, like the scraper board there that's just come up on screen. But you know, that particular image at the moment isn't in the store. Whether I'll ever put it in, I'm not sure, but we shall see. Well, I'm sure you've been good. So Santa, I don't know whether Santa would be. Just remind Santa though that it takes a little while to make these things, so don't leave it too late. Now, as I was saying earlier, one of the nice things one of the things that's hard to control sometimes with pyrography, and you're sort of starting to see like little dark spots over the place, and that is just, it's really hard to get that not to do though, not for that not to happen. But when you're doing things like for animals, leaves, whatever, nature, it's never really perfectly dead smooth. You always get like little variations in just light, and so it doesn't actually harm the image in getting those. If I was doing a car, beautiful shiny car, it might not look right, but animals, don't worry about it. Yes, Fluffy, I did think about that, and thank you very much for the follow, Miss Franks. Your friend does get really busy around about Christmas, doesn't she? Now, the fur angles help establish the shape of the face. Well, you won't fantastically see them, but when you're looking in person here, you can see the angles of the fur that I'm creating here, and that will help see contours. What I've got to be careful of in doing that is, and Sniper 2023X, thank you also for the follow. What I have to be careful of is ridges. So there's around the eye socket, there's bone. You can feel it on your eye yourself. And we have a light source in here that's coming down on his face. Yeah, it's him, because he's got a mane, he's a fella. That way. So across the very top of that bone, where the fur goes over the top of the bone, it will appear lighter because there's more light on it, and slightly darker on the edges. And I have to be careful, as well as the fur texture, as it goes over the bone. I've got to try and make sure I get some of that light and dark effect in, so you can see the curve. And it gets challenging. You never know, do you, Fluffy Twinkle? That's the problem with magic and myth. That's the problem. Have you never seen a lot of these films at Christmas where a new Santa comes about? You never know. She may not be teasing you. She may actually be telling you the truth. I'm also turning the board as well, because when you try and do curves, it's easy if you can work with your hand as though you're drawing like a compass would do from a point. Easier to curve that way than it is to curve that way smoothly without a lot of practice anyway, just because your natural arc of your hand helps get a smooth curve. So yeah, turn your work around. Yeah, the bone comes down there to about there. That's the sort of highlight area. It's not exactly the eye socket, it's more the cheekbone as well. Or at least it is on this cat. The really interesting thing I found about doing this and the pussycats, or I am finding about doing this and the pussycats, and so when I did the leopard, is really just how similar they are in face structure. I mean, it's kind of obvious in a way. They look like miniature tigers or lions, but it's just amazing how you've got a small animal that looks like this great big lion or tiger. And of course there is a breed of cat which is called, what's it called now? Oh, I've forgotten what it is now, but effectively it is a cat leopard, I think, cross. So it is a miniature, like a miniature leopard or a miniature big cat, which is quite interesting. They are indeed amazing creatures of all, you know, of all sizes. Now, one of the, I have mentioned it earlier on, but one of the things that can be really difficult when you're doing strokes like this, and one of the things I've not done is I've not erased this, it's not a pencil line, but this marking line here. One of the things that could be really difficult is when you're doing any form of stroke with one of these pens, the point where you start and where you stop is always slightly darker, because you never, well, you don't, well, most people, I'm one of them, tend to stop before lifting the pen off, put it down, move, lift, stop and move the pen off, and that creates a slightly darker mark. And sometimes you don't want that, sometimes you do. I mean, I want it on one edge here but not the other. One way to kind of avoid that is to vary the start and end points, or to vary the start point if you want the end point to have it. And as I come up around here, I want like a dark line, so stopping in the same place is fine. Starting, and you really want to have a fairly random start point, just so that I don't get a dark edge on the other side, so like tram lines. And the other thing about leaving this positional line in, that was done using a trace down, is I'm actually cooking it in. So as I put pyrography over the top, it's like putting a glaze over the top of it. Normally I'd erase it, but because I actually want a darkish edge, I'm taking advantage of the fact that that's what will happen, and just leaving it in place. But trying not to create those dark ends and starts can be a difficult thing. And you can avoid it using a technique which is also used in airbrushing, and I must easily describe it as like landing a plane and immediately taking off again. So as long as the pen is moving when it touches down and moving when you lift it off, you don't get that blob at the start and end, and so that technique can avoid you getting those lines. Bengal, that's the one. Thank you very much. Yeah, I knew it until the point where I came to say it, and then it went. The Bengals. I know Lady Zara would love to have a Bengal. And just as we get round there, that then... Which is the eye? Yeah. So just taking a closer look at my reference, because the third direction around the eye rotates. You can treat pyrography very much like you would treat any form of image art, whether it's painting or drawing. And one of the techniques for that is to do large blocks of colour, and then refine those, getting to smaller and smaller details. You can do that with pyrography, or you can to some extent do some of the details up front. I have a tendency to do details up front, just the way I work. So like I'm worrying about the exact placement of hairs around the eyes, rather than just colouring the whole image in. Different ways of working. Sometimes I'll go like I did for the nose, quite large blocks of colour, and then I'll add detail, but different ways of working. Thank you, Miss Franks. No fire pockets and experts. That, whilst the name pyrography does literally mean writing with fire, there's no fire and I'm not writing. Drawing with heat or painting with heat I tend to translate it as. No, yes, it's not a pencil. It's a metal hot metal tip. It's actually a little bit more versatile than a pencil. It doesn't go blunt for a start, but I can actually cut into the wood with it very slightly. As I apply heat, the wood softens and I can actually mark the wood, which is really hard to do with a pencil. Unless you press really hard and you get really dark lines, and I'm doing it with light lines. Although it does have one disadvantage over a pencil. If you hold a pencil in one place for a long time, nothing happens. With this, it just gets darker and darker and darker. Looks like a bird sitting on a branch, or two birds, does it? I kind of know what it is I'm looking at, so I'm not really seeing... what you're seeing, I'm afraid, Pocket's an expert. I know sometimes, and we did it with an image from Fluffy Twiglet, where you can see things in an image that weren't necessarily intended to be there. 90 degree. Okay. That's sort of like a bird, its neck and beak. Okay. I suppose almost then it could be like a bird perhaps feeding young in some way. See, this is where when you start to see things in images, because for example I can see what looks to be almost a person, the head and shoulders of a person there. Counterclock. I just did that counterclockwise, but yeah. Don't think I'm reversing the image. So it gets fun sometimes just to be able to see things. Yeah. And as soon as somebody points it out to you, you can see it. I think Fluffy Twiggler, I can't remember what it was, Fluffy Twiggler, the image, but we were seeing all sorts of clouds. We were seeing all sorts of things, and we I think we said, do we pick out about 15 different things like animals and all sorts of things out of it. Yeah. I can do it with my walls, because I've got my walls here are painted, and they've been not rag rolled, sponged. So there's all sorts of random shapes, and I can pick all sorts of things out, like seals and birds, and it's your block. That was, yes, that's the one. Well, this is a lion. Sort of resembling that, which was a pencil drawing I did yesterday. And I can see now that I'm doing this that I did the nose a bit too long yesterday. Oh, thank you very much for the reminder, Fluffy Twiggler. How much time do you spend in that? I very much do try, Miss Franks, to spend time every day between 8 PM and 10 PM UK time, which is precisely as Fluffy Twiglet says there. That's when I stream. I don't get much time outside of that very often, especially at the moment. Life is just busy. And to some extent I enjoy sharing it with you guys, so I tend to not do so much art outside of the stream, because then well, if I did, I'd probably do something completely different, because I kind of, well, a lot of you I think would like to come back and see the progression, and if it sort of took a big jump between streams and you miss out on what's going on, then you sort of might feel a bit cheated. So I do try and keep at least continuity between streams. So, you know, this, for example, I will be stopping shortly, but I won't touch it again until tomorrow, when I'll carry on from where I left off. Sometimes that makes it a challenge. to remember what I was intending to do. Very occasionally, if something's not working, and I had that problem when I did Felix, I will work on it off stream, and just try and sort it out. But I'll try and do it. And 2 hours is quite a long time, amongst everything else at the moment, because I do have a full-time job as well. So it would be really nice if I could do this full-time, but unfortunately, it's that's not going to happen. But as Fluffy Twiglet has mentioned, we have come to that time. It is 10 o'clock, and I'm now going to go get a drink and finish up 1 or 2 other activities I need to do before I go to bed. I have work tomorrow, unfortunately. Luckily, however, it doesn't take me long to get there. So what I'm going to do is say, oh look, all those lovely colours. What I'm going sorry, I just seen the image on the screen. What I'm going to do is just remind everybody who's watching that the shop has been mentioned. Moobot occasionally will drop in and say that. I'm getting better at placing my finger. There's a jewellery shop, so if anybody's interested, take a look. If there's anything you like, obviously it's available to buy. If you're thinking about Christmas and birthdays, don't leave it too close to the time. These things are made especially to order, and they do take a little bit of time to make, so I can't make 1,000 all in one go or something like that. Pass it on to family and friends, you never know. And thank you if you take a look. But apart from that, stream wise, if you are watching and not following, it would be fantastic if you'd follow. You don't have to, but it would be fantastic. On the other hand, if you would prefer to just be notified without following, because Twitch isn't always that good at notifying, you can follow me on Twitter @Zaragonart, and that will be on the end plate in a moment. It's also below the stream window if you come back later wondering what it was. If you'd just like to catch me tomorrow, I will be on tomorrow. I generally stream 7 nights a week, although I'll be taking a couple of nights off, not in the not too distant future, but I'll let you know closer to the time. So I stream from 8 PM UK time. That's 2000 hours GMT. We've just changed. Or UTC, if you know it as that. 2000 hours GMT, UTC, or UK time. Or it was 2 hours ago. When whatever time zone you're in, that was 2 hours ago. Otherwise, ask Google. Thank you all. Super Speedy, hello and goodbye. And hope I'll see you all again tomorrow. And thank you for watching. Bye bye.